If you have been making dresses or doing alterations for quite a long time, chances are one of your clients have asked you to hem a dress, right? Or maybe they've asked you to remove the train from a wedding dress or a gown. Now, if you're new to sewing, this might be a little challenging for you, especially if the hem is very, very, very long. You know those gowns with trains could be very long. So today I am going to share with you some tips and techniques on how to make this particular alteration a little bit more easier for you. Hello everyone, I'm Aletha with Ribbons and Zippers. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad that you stopped by today because today I'm going to show you some useful tips and techniques on how to remove a train from a gown, like a wedding gown or dress. It's very simple. I am so glad that you're here. Just stick with me and I'm going to show you how. Now for this alteration, you're not going to need a lot of tools, but the tools that you do use, make sure that they are very sharp because that's going to be very important for this project. So let's first take a look at some of the tools. Not a lot, just 3 actually. First, you're going to need a tape measure to take accurate measurements. You are also going to need pins that are long, sharp, and thin, such as these glass head pins. I love them. They are much better for using on satins and silks. You're also going to need chalk or some type of water-soluble marker. As for me, I use these friction pins. They are so awesome. I love them because they disappear with heat. So if you use the iron, they're gone. You'll never see it again. Now I do recommend using your rotary cutter instead of scissors because for this project, it's important to keep your fabric nice and flat on the table. So like I said, you want your tools to be nice and sharp. You want your pins to be new. Make sure you change out the blade on your rotary cutter. So let's learn how to remove a train in a few simple steps. Step 1, we'll determine and mark our desired hem length, which includes a 1/2 inch or 5/8 inch hem. Step 2, we will mark our cutting line from center front to center back. Step 3, let's pin the hem in place for a smooth cut. Step 4, let's remove the train. Step 5, we'll finish the raw edge and I'll show you a simple technique on how to pin the hem so that you won't damage the dress. So let's get started. The first thing you're going to do is lay your dress flat on a table. Now, if your dress is longer than your table, you might find it easier to hang the dress on a high hook or a rod so that the hem does not reach the floor. Start by measuring down from the waist to your desired hem, which should include your 1/2 inch seam, which is your hem, or 5/8 of an inch, whichever you desire. So first measure 3 areas. You're going to measure the center front and the 2 side seams. Mark the hem length. Okay, so do the measurements and then mark the hem length, which is your new hem length. Then you're going to measure the center back seam 1 inch longer. Now the first thing that you're going to do is fold your hem in half. You're going to do that so that the 2 side seams meet exactly. Next, I'm going to pin at the seam. So right at the seam, I'm going to put a pin. Starting at the center front and continuing measuring from the waist while I'm pivoting the tape measure, I'm going to continue to measure and mark. Make sure to move the tape measure towards the side seam and repeat the measuring process. Adjust the dress and then just keep marking. Keep marking until you reach the center back seam. However, to avoid any sharp angles at the center back seam, stop at the side seam and then start moving your marker down. So you want to slant down, okay? Because remember, we put an inch more at the back seam. A good idea is to find a halfway point between the side seam and the center back. Once you find that halfway point, then you're going to start angling down towards the center back seam. Next, connect your marks until you have a nice smooth line from center front to center back. Again, if you notice that there are any sharp angles, use a curved ruler such as your hip ruler or any curved ruler to get rid of or smooth out those angles. Here's what mine looks like. Okay guys, before I move on to the next part, I just would like to ask you to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell so that you can be reminded every time I do a video that's just for you. Next, I'm going to pin again at the side seam, but this time I'm going to pin above the line that I just created. Now I'm going to keep pinning above this line. At the same time, I'm making sure that the bottom edge matches exactly. I'm also making sure to smooth my dress so that there are no extra fabric or puckers. Okay, so here is my pinned hem. Now it's ready to be cut. Now it is important to insert the pins as close to the cutting line as possible. Now that's going to ensure that you are within the seam allowance so that there's no way that you can have any pinholes. Now this technique is the best way that I know how to get an accurate and even cut. It makes both sides exactly the same. So here's my side seam, which is matching exactly. Here's my center front. And as I keep going towards the back, notice that the hem is even and matched all the way to the center back seam. So now it's time to cut. And remember, make sure that your rotary cutter is nice and sharp. Now it's very important to check under the dress to make sure that no parts of the dress is getting cut. Make sure it's nice and flat and then start cutting. So notice my nice sharp cut. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to have a sharp blade. So now just continue cutting all the way to the center back. When you're finished, remove the pins. So here we have it. It's a nice, smooth, evenly cut hem. Now I'm going to head on over to the serger and finish the hem. So now this is my center back seam where I start serging. I like to know where I'm going to start and end. So for me, that's the center back. So I'm going to go all the way around, past the side seams and then back. Notice that I'm working on the wrong side and I have the dress protected by tucking it nicely within itself. And that's going to help me keep it from snagging or making any damage. Okay, so now for the hem. So if you are a beginner, you probably are pinning your hem in order to sew it, and that's perfectly fine, that's okay. So let me show you a technique for working with these very long hems, especially if you're a beginner. First, determine the width of your hem, and for me, I'm turning it up 5/8 of an inch, and I've pinned it. I want to make sure that my pin is nice and sharp. That's important. So these are glass head pins. They are thin and sharp and very good for using on silk and satin fabrics like this. So I'm going to put my pin through the hem and notice that I have a sharp point sticking out. I don't want that. That's the point. I don't want that. What you want is to bury the point in between the dress and the hem. Since this is a very long hem, I want to protect my dress. I don't want my pins to snag on any part of my dress while I'm working. So I want to hide the point in between the hem and the dress. So just sandwich it in between, and that way you protect the dress. My last step is to use a pressing cloth to press my hem nice and flat. A pressing cloth is very important just so that you won't ruin your client's dress. Be very careful with that. Okay guys, so that's how I managed to remove a train from a very long hem. And this one wasn't that long, but it was long enough. But I managed it. It was simple. If you follow those techniques, I think that you'll find it simple too. So I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.